Welcome back, friends and scoundrels, to Horror in the Hills. I'm Bran.
Robbie. Sarah.
This is Movies with My Monsters. What did we watch today?
I still know what you did last summer.
I still know what you did last summer. Somebody want to summarize it?
Julie's been having dreams about Ben Willis coming back and chasing them, and then her friend gets 4 tickets to the Bahamas.
And
Where?
they go to the Bahamas and murders start to ensue?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. I still know what you did last summer. The sequel to I Know What You Did Last Summer. Yeah. Before I forget, since you've gotten this far already, people, thank you. I appreciate it. Like, comment, subscribe, share it around. If you're on a catcher of some sort of pod listening, rate and review things. Yeah. Let's carry on. So,
I was curious whether Julie's just seeing things, or if she's actually seeing it with like the words on the screen, and I wonder if that part at the end was a dream, because later on we find out that the end of the last one was a dream, because Ray or Will, I forget which, said something about a dream with a shower. Will. Okay.
It could have been a little bit of both, because, by the way, spoilers for anybody. I'm trying to remember things. So we find out at the end how many people are involved?
2. Ben and his son.
So it could be possible that Ben was around and hanging around and explains some of the inconsistencies. Yeah, because they allude to it being within driving distance. But I mean, it's possible that Ben was at the club when they were there and hanging out in the shadows. Might have just been her PTSD and her seeing stuff.
Could have been. Maybe the dead body was too. In the closet.
Not likely. No, that was probably there. And Ben cleaned it up, so that way she would look crazy.
I noticed something at the end. Will says it's not my blood, and Barry and the other one at the beginning says it's not mine, when Julie or Helen thinks he's bleeding on his head.
Do you have anything, Robbie?
So at the beginning, I noticed, when they got the ticket, and Will said, what was your favorite, and the guy said, what was your favorite radio station?
Yeah.
And at the end, Will, when he said it's not my blood, he starts making a computer-like voice and saying, what's your favorite radio station? In the same voice as the guy, as the person on the phone in the beginning. They were the same. It's the same person. Will set it up.
That's what that point of that was. Is that Will called their room, and pretended to be the radio station. What else do you guys want to talk about?
I noticed Julie picking up a picture of Helen in the parade.
Yeah.
And I think it was on the board of the bulletin board that Ben Willis had at the end of the first one.
It's possible. Might have just reused it for money-saving purposes.
So, at the beginning, when Carla's in the closet, at the end, the closet doors open, and I thought, is it Carla or Ben Willis?
It's just a generic slasher stinger, because that's what they do. So what did you guys think of this movie overall? Did you enjoy it more than the first one, or?
I think I enjoyed both of them equally. They both told the story really good, and both were equally as scary with the tension building setups.
I suppose.
I just won't go into it as much this time.
I mean, you can go into things, just don't get hung up on a thing. I was getting a little tired of the fake out scares in the first half of the movie. Like, if you're gonna do scary stuff, do scary stuff. Don't fake me out so much. It was just getting tedious and drawn out.
But it then builds the tension later because you're like, is it actually Ben or is it somebody else?
Well, there's other ways to do that. Rather than all the fake scares. I mean, they're just there because it's kind of what they were doing at the time in movies in general. What about you, Robbie?
I liked it. I don't really know if I liked this one or the first one better.
I'm definitely gonna go with the first one. I think it's got a little bit better setup. The tension starts in the beginning and it's consistent throughout. Whereas this one, it's up and down and it's all over the place, and I don't enjoy the characters nearly as much. I mean, it's still better than the third one. I don't even remember watching the third one. But it has completely different characters. And Ben comes back as a zombie kind of thing.
That would be a little creepier, though.
Could be. Or it could be really cheesy.
I thought what was going to happen is in the first one was David Egan would come back out of the water and attack them.
As a stinger or what? When?
In the first one?
Yeah, at what point do you think that would happen?
I just thought that was going to be the main thing that happened.
So you thought that one was going to be a little bit more supernatural?
Yeah.
So what else? There's got to be something you guys want to talk about.
That's it. That's all that I wanted to talk about.
Do I need to go to the old questions?
Yeah.
Did you pick up on any themes throughout the movie?
No, not really. No.
So, like, the biggest theme is about Julie dealing with her mental and emotional state after the previous year.
Oh, I've got one. Your actions can hurt others because everyone else got killed because Ben Willis was going after Julie.
Kinda. Because in the first one, there are other people that are killed.
Like Elsa?
Like Elsa
The
and the cop and what's his name? Leonard from
Max.
Big Bang Theory. Max, yes. They're kind of casualties, but really the focus is on these four. The rest of them are just kind of happenstance. They're just there. But the main overarching thing is Julie dealing with her mental and emotional state and how that affects people. Like, even after she knows that Ben is supposed to be dead, because she shot him a whole bunch of times, more than that gun can hold. She's still checking the locks and anxious about sounds and all that kind of stuff, even at the end, right?
Yeah.
And they just play it off like, oh, that's just how I am, but that's a real effect of going through some of that, through something like that for a lot of people. Do you think the whodunit aspect of this was better?
Yeah. Because I think it sets up that it's the guy who's doing the voodoo, who has all the stuff for voodoo, and it's actually somebody else.
Okay, so a decent red herring. There's still a few red herrings in this, right?
Yeah.
Because did you think it was the manager of the hotel at any point?
No, I thought it was gonna be Will. Because of the last name Willis.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Not because it's Will, Ben's son.
I didn't know who Ben's son was. We didn't even know Ben had a son until this movie.
Right.
Yeah, at the end.
But, I mean, the actual premise of a whodunit, in comparison to the first one where we didn't know who Ben was until he was revealed, whereas this one we have Will right from the start of the movie, practically, right?
Yeah.
And he's there all throughout. So, at what point did you think it was going to be Will?
Pretty much from the beginning.
Yeah. This is just too convenient.
Yeah.
What about you? Did you figure it out at any point?
I thought it was gonna be the guy who stole the toothbrush and hair tying stuff.
What is his name? Ellis?
Yeah. I forgot. Because at first I thought it was gonna be Ben Willis. Then I thought it was gonna be that guy because he hit Will in the face with an oar. Then I thought it was gonna be Will.
So, I'm going to put a little plot hole in here. This is something I thought about. Shouldn't they have gone to school with Will?
Who?
Julian,
They
Ray,
did.
and everybody.
They did, didn't they? Because in the beginning, Julie was walking home from school with him.
College, not high school. If he's around their age, shouldn't they have gone to high school with him?
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Yeah, but it tells us that Julie's moved away from the town she lived in the first one.
But he should have gone to high school with them, right?
Right?
When they were in high school, shouldn't he have been there with them if he's around the same age? Because Ben's daughter went to their high school, Susie.
Yeah.
But she was a couple years before them, so they didn't really interact. So, why wasn't Will there?
I don't know.
Plot hole. And it's a pretty big one. I mean, because if Ben lived there and his kids went to the same school as everybody else, then there's a good possibility that they would have known him, especially if he's younger. I just wanted to point that out. See if you guys might have thought of it. I doubted it, but I actually didn't think of it until this time watching it. But it's been forever since I watched this movie. How'd you feel about the atmosphere of this movie?
I feel like it was good with all the lightning going on and the flashing lights at the party. It creates shadows.
Mm-hmm.
So she's more likely to see things. And with all the lightning at the Bahamas and it's stormy.
What else about them being on the island?
They're apart from everybody else and can't get away.
They're isolated, can't get help. What about you?
I thought it was pretty good.
Could you tell that there were two killers?
No.
Something that stood out to me was Ben's hook hand. Did you notice it?
Yeah.
That it had like a cap on it?
Yeah.
So that was the thing that stood out to me, because that's getting pretty elaborate for covering things up. And then you had moments where Will is doing stuff with them, and there's killings happening at the same time.
Yeah.
Or, something else happening. So, like, when Will is with Terrence,
I forget.
Claire's boyfriend, we'll go with Terrence. I know I'm close. So Will's with Terrence, and then Claire's investigating the dryer, and then Julie gets locked up. Obviously, that couldn't have been Will, right?
Yeah.
Because he was with the other guy. So that was a fun little aspect of the whodunit to go back to that for a second. What was your favorite thing in this movie?
The flashing lights to show the shadows, especially at the party.
Robbie?
I like that there was part of the cop story because the cop said he heard the same story, but the guy had a hook for a hand. And in this one, he actually does have a hook for a hand. And so it's showing part of everybody's story in both movies.
Okay. I like this movie after the actual horror part starts. When the storm starts and they're completely cut off once it actually starts going that way. I'm very annoyed by everything before that.
Pip, another one for you for the stories. In the closet, Derek is hung from a rope and in one of their stories, he's hung from a rope with the scratching, and his fingernails are scratching the car. And the drip, drip, drip because he's been decapitated, and drip, drip, drip because he's been gutted. The drip, drip, drip of the blood happens in the first one.
You like that it continues the urban legend aspects?
Yeah.
What was your least favorite thing?
My least favorite thing was when Ray couldn't shoot the gun, and then
Julie was able to?
Yeah.
So why didn't you like that?
Because the gun wasn't loaded, but when Julie had it, it was, and Julie didn't have any ammo for it.
I don't think that's what the problem was. I think it was a malfunction, probably due to the rain. I would imagine the explanation would be, which that gun would not be affected by the rain like that. It was just that way Julie could have the kill, and to set up the fight with Ray and Will.
I don't really have a least favorite part.
I don't know. I'm torn up between a couple of things, because I really don't like his name is Terrell, because he just whines and complains the whole movie. But I also don't like how Claire is trying to force Julie into this relationship that she doesn't want to be in, and trying to force her to cheat on Ray when she doesn't want to. Ray and Julie had that fight, sure, but it was a misunderstanding of what was going on. Because Ray got back and he wasn't mad at her anymore. He trying to, understand that she doesn't want to be back home because of everything she experienced there. So I think that might be my least favorite part. Because it's too forced for the story to make certain things happen and to get Will on the island. Where, you could very easily do it another way where he just goes to the island and he's like, oh yeah, my dad works here. Which would, play into later. I don't know. There are some better things that could have been done. What was the scariest part?
The scariest part. When Ben sneaks up on Nancy and Julie and Clara and the other guy.
Alice?
No. Clara's boyfriend.
Oh, Tyrell?
Yeah. What was the question again?
What was the scariest part for you?
At the very end when Julie got pulled under the bed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's really a scary part for me in this. I mean, it was certainly a little bit more gory, wasn't it?
Yeah.
They did get into that a little bit more. Do you think this one was scarier than the first one?
Yes.
Why?
I feel like the music was a little louder.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot more places for jump scares than jump scares.
It did build up a lot of the jump scares, but it didn't actually do a whole lot with some of them, right?
Yeah.
And that was the fake scares that I was talking about. I don't like those. They're cheap. And with something like this, by the time you get to the part where it's actually supposed to be scary, a lot of times it can actually take that tension away because you've already expended your tension. You've already built it up and expended it so many times in your body and your mind are just like, okay, whatever. I don't care anymore. So that's why I don't like that kind of stuff. It just really cheapens the experience of the movie, because when it's scary, it should be scary. When it's not scary, it shouldn't be scary. At least in my opinion. I don't think it was as scary. This one was quite as scary, because when you think back to some of the really good scenes in the first one, your favorite with Helen.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on there, and you don't know what he's going to do or where he's going to come from, right? And then nothing actually happens with her that we see directly, until she wakes up the next morning. We see that her hair's been cut and he's messed with her, right?
Yeah.
Which, when you stop and think about that, that's much scarier than somebody just chasing you down. Because it's somebody taking the time and being methodical about how they're messing with you. You've also got the scene in the store with Helen.
Yeah.
That night. And you've got all the mannequins and displays covered in tarps. And you don't know where he's going to be. As opposed to just randomly showing up. Which are very similar, but when people are talking and he just walks up out of nowhere, most of the time isn't as scary as, okay, he could be under anything in here, usually. So I just think the tension and the tone in the first one, it was more accurate to what the tones were supposed to be and when they were supposed to be those tones. So like I said, when it's not scary, it's not scary. When it's supposed to be scary, it's scary. Makes sense?
Yeah.
Although the first one, kind of tension all throughout, right?
Yeah.
Because you've got this struggling dynamic between all the characters because they all experience this thing together and none of them want to deal with it, but they're being forced to deal with it. So it's causing fights between them. And there's a lot of fights in this movie between characters too, right?
Yeah.
But it's superficial fights. There's no background to it. It just, people are fighting because they're stressed out, not because there's any real stakes for them personally, other than, just trying to survive. Have you thought of anything else that you'd like to talk about?
No. In the first one, when Helen, I think it's Helen, she's pulling the rope, and the guy's trying to catch her, and then in the second one, when they're climbing the ladder and he's trying to catch Claire, I think that's Clara, I think that's a little similar.
That's probably due more to the tropes of slasher movies in particular, where people run up a lot of times. And I know a lot of people criticize them, but what do you think you would do if you were in that situation? If someone was chasing you trying to harm you?
That's actually kind of hard to think about. I'd probably hide somewhere. I'd probably stay together with my friends.
So, the reality is, most people don't actually know what they would do. Like, they think they know what they would do, but when the actual situation happens, they could do something completely different. Like, even people that have spent a lot of time training. So, like, police officers, or more particularly soldiers, are a much better example. Because what do soldiers train for?
Fighting.
For combat, right?
Yeah.
And they do it, like, all the time. But there's a good number of those people that when the shells start falling around them, they seize up because they're not that kind of person and they cannot deal with it. Even though they may have spent years training. So the reality is you don't know what you're going to do until you're faced with having to deal with it. And most people, when they're faced with that level of stress, will go to the most comfortable thing that they know. And they will try to get away, and I can't go to this door because it's locked or whatever, or blocked. So they'll run the opposite way, and the opposite way might be upstairs. A lot of times you're just trying to get away, and you're not actually thinking about the most logical way to do it. Because most people aren't confronted with those kinds of things. Is that all?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, this is our first sequel. Watching, right?
Yeah. No. Because the Paranormal Activities.
Oh, yeah. I forgot all about those. Yeah. So, redact that. So I guess next we're gonna do Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Scream.
And then I guess we'll tackle the Scream series, which is very similar to this. It came out before this, so.
You said there are other Paranormal Activity movies, right? Yeah.
I did. We'll watch them at some point when I'm ready.
And there's a sequel coming out to Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
Maybe.
Yeah. And maybe a prequel to Pennywise.
Maybe.
I said maybe.
Anyways, that's Movies with My Monsters. Thanks for listening. Had a little bit of growth, so thank you for those people for joining us. And toodles.
Bye.